today's interview. I would like to ask you 3 questions today regarding your new live course, Judaism, A Rational Approach, based on your book, which I recommend to everybody to get a hold of this book. The link will be in the description below. How do you define the concept of the divine indication in contrast with blind belief or just the mystical intuition?
Well, good morning, Rabbi. Thank you again for having me, and I'm very excited to be doing this course. The concept of divine indications is essentially the building blocks of evidence that, when presented and analyzed cumulatively, essentially brings us to the conclusion that it's much more likely than not that Judaism is of divine origin and the Torah is of divine origin. To the second part of your question regarding blind faith, the difference between the two is night and day. The concept of blind faith, which most religions are based on blind faith, is a concept that's subjective. Has to do with how I was brought up, what I feel. Right now, obviously, if I really, really believe that it's snowing in Southern California, that doesn't have anything to actually do with the weather in Southern California right now. So the approach to religion is usually a subjective, I believe a certain way because I feel a certain way, because I was brought up a certain way. And that's the exact opposite of the way Judaism approaches spirituality. It's based on an objective, verifiable source. And that's what we're going to be doing in this course, is going through these building blocks to understand better how we can arrive at this logical, rational conclusion as a basis for our faith.
Okay. You've also mentioned that Judaism offers a fundamentally different approach to faith and divine service than Christianity or Islam. Could you explain to all those who are listening to us today and to the students that will participate in our course, what makes Judaism foundation more rational or coherent, especially with regards to the concept of Trinity in Christianity or the beliefs in Islam? How does Judaism really set itself as the gold standard?
Well, I think that's it's a very, very broad and important issue. I deal with it at length in the book, and I think we're going to devote
Chapter 8.
two lectures. Yeah, chapter 8 in the book. I
Mm-hmm.
think we're going to devote at least 2 lectures to the fundamental differences between Judaism and Islam and Christianity. Without getting into too much detail, because like I said, it's a very broad topic, let's talk about what is a shared inconsistency between Christianity and Islam and Judaism. And one of the biggest logical deficiencies that Christianity and Islam contain is the very fact that they accept the 5 books of Moses, or what the Christians call the Old Testament. They accept that as the Word of God. And they base the religion on top of Judaism. They're saying this is the next chapter. God no longer wants the old covenant; He now has a new covenant. And this creates very many problems for them theologically, rationally, logically, historically, because it's just simply not the case. And both religions suffer from the fact that the Torah itself, which they say is the word of God, says it can't be changed. For
Absolutely.
example, I mean, there's many, many examples. We'll just give you a few. Deuteronomy chapter 4 says, "You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor shall you subtract from it to observe the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you."
They, they
Regarding all
could
the
they could
holidays.
they could argue with that example. Christians or Muslims could argue that say that God commanded us, the Jews, not to change, but He didn't command the rest of humanity. How would you answer?
Well, the very idea of Christianity and Islam is that it's not that the Jews have to keep, according to Christians themselves, the Jews also don't need to be doing these commandments anymore because they believe in replacement theology. They believe that
Exactly.
that from now on these commandments are no longer relevant, and you just have to accept these new set of rules or ideologies. So that's
Exactly.
really the problem. There's so many commandments that the Torah talks about, like
And
holidays, Sukkot, even Yom Kippur that is coming up in 10 days to 12 days from now, where it says specifically that this is an internal commandment for all your generations.
and
So
and
that's
I'm
just one example.
you're going to enter in much detail in the class. So obviously, I invite everyone to join for the live class, for the live discussion, and so forth. I have a last question for you, Rabbi Ariel, today. How does your course explain the idea that Judaism, through the 7 universal laws for humanity, is not only a faith for Jews, but a moral framework for all humanity? What are the practical implications of this concept in today's global society where legal systems, ethics, and religions often conflict?
Well, I think that the implications are astronomical. I don't think we can understand exactly. I mean, it's fundamental difference because in our society right now, we have pretty much we've entered a phase of moral relativism. We've entered a phase of postmodernism where there's really no idea of a finite idea of what's good or bad, right or wrong. The legal world is riddled with legal problems trying to adopt different cultures, practices into their respective legal norms. And we've essentially come to a point where society is doing what's comfortable for it, and calling it good or bad. And it's created chaos, as we see in the world. The moral ambiguity is rampant. So
Absolutely.
what Judaism does is essentially has established 613 divine commandments for the Jewish people and 7 Noahide commandments or universal commandments for the rest of humanity. We're going to have to get into this into deeper deeper in the lectures and in the book it's discussed as well. But the idea is universal concepts and standards that are divinely ordained as to what is good and bad, right and wrong, what the actual creator of this entire beautiful world that we live in, what he considers to be morally correct or incorrect. And that is a lot more important than what any specific culture or human being thinks is right or wrong. So that really
Absolutely.
is it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for humanity for us to come out of this chaos, according to what the creator of the system has asked us to do, as opposed to what we think.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're gonna illustrate very in great depth. But I just want to mention for us to conclude today our interview, a phrase that you write in chapter one, conveniently righteous, which illustrates what you are mentioning now. Thus, on page one, thus the search for truth and a consistent set of values to unite mankind in our quest for peace and prosperity has evaded humanity throughout the ages. So perhaps this class of yours, Rabbi Ariel, will open the possibilities for people to practically understand truly how to fulfill the will of God and to fulfill the divine image within themselves, and to allow us to reach the clarity that we all dream of, and the prosperity and the kindness that everyone wants to experiment in his own country, according to his own culture, but with this universal system of values that will allow us to be all united with one constitution, with the understanding that we are all one, with each one with his own singularity. So I'm looking forward for your classes. I'm sure you're gonna bring a lot of powerful arguments to reinforce also the students with the capacity to stand for what's truth, right, and good. Thank you, Rabbi Ariel, for being with us today, and
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Toda rabba.
looking forward to see you next time, Bezat Hashem, maybe after Rosh Hashanah. In the meanwhile, Shana Tova, and thank you again.
Yossi, Shana Tova.